Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. We're going to give attendees a few minutes to join and then kick things off. I feel like we should add some background music.
We could do a little duet, maybe.
Yeah. Awesome. Looks like we have some attendees joining, so let's go ahead and get things started. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. But today's session is all about how to grow your DTC brand in today's retail environment. So my name is Melissa Weir, and I'm Director of Demand Generation here at Pantastic. And joining us, we have two awesome speakers, Emily Uhas, co-founder and CEO at Atomic, and Steph Carcamo from Just Uno, who is on the customer experience team. So thank you both for joining us today, and we'll tell you a little bit more about our speakers and their experience in the following slides. So Pantastic. Pantastic is on a mission to give D2C brands superpowers to grow their businesses with leading tools and services. So we have 3 Shopify offerings in our portfolio. I'll tell you a little bit about each, and you'll hear about some a little bit later. So UpOrder is an app that helps you take an email channel that you already have, your Shopify notification emails, and really optimize them to generate more repeat purchases. So your order confirmations, account welcomes, there's many more, but we help you optimize those to generate repeat customers from that channel. And then CartHook helps you boost your AOV with post-purchase offers. And post-purchase offers are between the order confirmation page and your thank you page. So offering incentives and product recommendations there to boost your AOV. And LimeSpot, which helps you deliver real-time personalization at scale to turn those shoppers into buyers. We also have Pantastic Shop, which is a marketplace that helps you find new customers for your Shopify brand. All right, and Emily, I'll turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and Atomic.
Great. Yeah, I'm Emily. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Atomic. Atomic helps people maximize their LTV with a really powerful subscription tool that goes kind of beyond that basic subscribe and save model to really dig into offering delightful consumer experiences, both on the purchase flow, but especially in the subscription management and ongoing relationship that you build with customers. And on average, we see that our customers really increase their LTV by 230% or more sometimes, just by starting to offer subscriptions and really starting to leverage our tools. We have some really awesome built-in bundling tools that help increase AOV as well. And then also we see a huge reduction in customer support outreach, especially if you've previously offered subscriptions. We can almost fully eliminate that with some of our really intuitive, kind of easy experiences for customers.
Hey everyone, Steph here from Just Uno, and at Just Uno, our focus is really that whole on-site experience from a CRO perspective. So conversion rate optimization is the name of the game. And we also, of course, incorporate the email capture strategy, whether it's email or SMS. So you'll see opt-in rates at about 5 to 7% for email. And we also incorporate that average bounce rate as a KPI that we look to decrease. And we can really get into that with segmentation, which is where we're able to help these brands out, and really where I come into play and working with brands and helping them strategize exactly where we can communicate or impact that experience on site.
Awesome. Well, welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining us today. Before we dive into the content, though, I want to give a little bit of housekeeping. So this session is being recorded. We'll send a follow-up recording after we wrap. All attendees are on mute. So if you have any questions, just put them into the chat section or the Q&A section of the Zoom, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. If you have any urgent audio issues, you can throw that into the chat and we'll help you live. So today's agenda is jam-packed. So we'll talk about today's e-commerce landscape. Then we'll dive into the 3 core areas DTC brands need to focus on for long-term sales and really that mindset of like future-proofing your business. And then within those 3 categories, we'll talk about strategies and tactical tips to help you improve on-site conversion, boost AOV, and retention strategies. And then we'll wrap everything up with a live Q&A. So before we kind of, dive into those 3 areas, we want to just take a minute and acknowledge where we're at in the e-commerce landscape. And so we pulled this chart from Oblero, and we really wanted to just kind of take a stance of like where we're at, where we've been, and where we're going. So Emily, you had some great insights into some of this chart. I'd love for you to speak a little bit about it.
Yeah, so, I think we've seen over the past 10 years or so, a lot of growth in e-commerce and, lots of opportunity there. In the last 2 years, we've seen a massive acceleration, but I think it's important to remember always that this was not kind of a random occurrence. It's very much based on the things that we were experiencing, globally and especially in the US around COVID and, the people being stuck at home, shopping more online, some of the situations around how people's lifestyle change really accelerated that growth. And so, as we go into, some of the things that have changed, I think the thing to highlight here is that we did see exceptional growth over the past few years, but we've been on like a long-term, trend of e-commerce growth for quite some time. And we do expect that to continue in a really exciting way.
Yeah. And in this chart too, it was actually a snapshot at the beginning of 2022. So you'll see 2022's data here, and it was looking really promising, right? It was 250 billion. I mean, that's the highest. If it continued on that trajectory, that would have been the highest annual online sales ever. So obviously now, it's August and, what's happened this year and how can we kind of respond and adapt to it? So, today's market, there's been a lot of shifts. So changes to consumer privacy over the last couple of years in advertising technology, continued supply chain issues, reduced consumer spending, increased advertising costs for, more competition, as well as those consumer privacy changes. People have returned to in-store shopping. Stimulus checks ended in the last year. There's been fierce competition with so many brands coming on to e-commerce. And, this concern of inflation, which has really kind of cooled consumer spending. So there's not just 1 or 2 things here. There's a lot of things to consider as you are developing your strategies, not only to get through this year and the holiday season, but as you're thinking about 2023. So, a lot of the strategies that worked over the last 2 years when we saw that incredible boom aren't netting the same results for a lot of those reasons in the previous slide. So it's really time to kind of take stock of what works. And again, what can be a long-term strategy to help you consistently grow. And Emily, I know you have some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, so I think one thing really to think about is, even though the last slide felt kind of dire, and those are things that we've all been feeling hitting us kind of throughout the past 6 months or more, when you look at that initial growth chart and you think about the opportunity in e-commerce, it's still extremely large. In the US, e-commerce still is only about 15% of retail sales. And if you look at China, they're already at 50%. And that's something that's happening today. It's not something that could happen in the future. We're not even close to an upper bound of, what e-commerce could be. And so, I think changing your mindset, thinking about how can I change my strategies, how can I adapt, and how can I be part of that enormous growth that's to come is a really important way to look at things, even when things kind of feel like, there's constantly, things that are hitting us and surprising us and changing under our feet. So I think that's really a lot of what we're talking about today is how to kind of be on the forefront of that mindset change.
Absolutely. And, there's kind of core areas where brands need to focus their business, over the next near term and long term in order to continue to thrive, kind of regardless of what the market is, how the market's responding. And so, I know everyone's kind of been waiting for these, and this is what we'll really dive into today. We'll talk about each one of these core areas, and then we'll talk about how to do it, strategies and also tactics you can take away today. So the first one being capture more leads. So, this is something I think a lot of brands are always focusing on, but really turning that traffic into leads. And what does that mean? And how can you do it? And how does that help your business grow? We'll talk about that with Steph in just a moment. Increasing your AOV, so making more money off of every Shopify sale that you have on your website. And then really creating a repeatable business model by driving returning customers. And so we're trying to kind of follow these three categories in the way that a consumer comes to your site. So they're organized as such, but we'll kind of comment and talk about how these are related throughout. So Steph, if you could kick us off with the first one around capturing more leads.
Yes, thank you. That was a really great intro into everything that we're talking about. And it really gave me pause into like what our clients are thinking about, when we're talking about pop-ups. It's like they're also thinking about their revenue and, what the state of just in general on-site management and pop-ups is. So this is really great to be involved in. And from a just, aspect, we are concerned with capturing more leads. And within our pop-ups, you're able to capture much more than email, right? Or even SMS, a newer channel for a lot of clients and for a lot of merchants out there. But we also want to capture things that will tell us more about the customer or the visitor themselves, right? They're either a visitor or a customer, a returning customer. And that's where these leads, capturing them, really helps us in how we curate our email funnel and what that content looks like. Can help us in understanding what offers or really maybe what to use our SMS channel for example, just learning about where are you shopping? Do you typically shop online? Really being curious is what lead capture can be all about. And right now we're at a perfect time too with the holidays right around the corner and understanding where people want to purchase or what are your customers already kind of bundling and using your products for that you may not know all about. So a lot of data can come from that to impact content that you have in your leads, in your email flows and content that we show in our pop-ups.
Right. And I think too, Steph, like what we're saying is it's not just about conversions on site, for customers, right? It's like, how can you capture more conversions that will lead to customers, right? So creating that funnel.
Yeah, we can think about conversions in a different way too. And it's like just them engaging with you on your website, like that takes us a long way. They're already in, and we can prove that with our engagement numbers compared to without engaging with a pop-up and already having that immediate, step into getting to know your brand. Yeah, that's a great call out. Nice. So yeah, lead capture is so much more than just pop-ups. And when we're talking about lead capture, we really want to have a goal in mind. Are we capturing data? Are we focusing on the same session conversion? And here we point out you can add additional fields like radio buttons and kind of mapping out, what are visitors purchasing this product for? Perhaps maybe more general, how did they hear about your brand? Or wanting to understand maybe that demographic, who are they purchasing for? Is it during the holiday time or a busy time? An extension of this can go to back in stock signups. So kind of just keeping in line with different ways we can interact with visitors on your website that don't feel like just a pop-up on site. So back in stock, we can ask visitors to sign up to get notifications for when something is back in stock and take that opportunity to really nurture that visitor, whether it's in the email flow and then how they get back to site, and then making that whole experience really make sense for them from when they opted in to when they see the email flow and come back to site. So really big circle, right, that we want to get them back into. We also point out quiz for personalization. So depending on the size of your business, right, this may feel like something that needs a little bit more thought or maybe a bigger project. But when we think about it in terms of pop-ups, it can be a little easier because we're just thinking about what can we ask them in this quiz, in this pop-up to lead to a next step. more in getting a cue out of them, trying to understand what we can show them to lead to an add to cart click. Maybe we take them to the blog to browse a little bit more. Or in general, we're just giving them more product awareness by showing them, product discovery by showing them different upsell or cross sells throughout that experience based on what they say they're interested in that original lead capture. So I know that may seem like a whole long flow, but it all starts with the questions, right? Like, what do we really want to know? And what can we ask? That just seems like that would be great to know. And, eventually that will impact something with design or location and just in general, how this fires. One example here that we'll point out too is this tab that says sign up to unlock 20% off today. Something as simple as that tab allows your visitor to have control of when they open that back up and when they see that. So that's even a next step of just firing a pop-up. Maybe you only show that tab and leave it up to the visitor to engage when they're ready. You can spice that up and say it's a mystery offer. We can say it's a game. I have a lot of clients that explore spin to wins or those scratch off games that you see on websites that are kind of cool on mobile. So, be open to testing that and kind of seeing what your lead captures can give you in terms of data.
Yeah, and it sounds like all of these strategies, kind of like we're back to the same thing, which is how can you, turn that shopper or that visitor into somebody that's in your database and then continue to kind of nurture, retarget them and build that relationship.
There you go. Cool. So once we have these leads, how can we get them to convert? And it is all about like, how have we nurtured them up to this point, but also the source, the traffic, like where they're coming from makes a big difference here. For example, in this in the screenshot here where we have use code shop123, and then it's leading up to that banner example, that's someone that's coming from email. They already know they get an offer. So as soon as they get on site, we're showing them a banner with their offer, making it very easy and no friction in what that offer is, how they can redeem it. So this type of kind of anticipating where they're coming from and what they're expecting when they arrive on site is what you can mimic in really all situations, whether it's an exit offer, right? Maybe we save this, maybe they get this offer in their email, shop123, and later on they're going to abandon your site. Let's remind them of this offer and give them either some time to give them a sense of urgency, maybe a timer and some sense of, this has got to be redeemed within the next 24 hours, maybe next 20 minutes. And that comes down to really knowing when your visitors are converting or when the average visitor tends to visit again after that first visit. Beautiful. So this is a really great example from a client called Midland. And this is two-pronged strategy that I really love because it ties in everything that we've kind of been talking about personalization, information we're getting. So that first top pop-up didn't find what you're looking for. Imagine this firing when you're trying to leave their site. So they're taking to a visit radio finder, which is a quiz for them, keeps you engaged, not necessarily focusing on that conversion at that point. This is a visitor that's exiting, probably hasn't added anything to their cart. So getting to know more about them is a right next step here. And we can look at engagement numbers later, and see what we can get out of there for anyone else wanting to run this. And then a follow-up of this flow is awesome. We keep them on site. Let's say they engage with the quiz. That's great. They're in that flow. Maybe they get to cart, finally have added something. We are mimicking that design into this now cart abandoner that says that you just got 10% off your purchase. Immediately, we're giving them a coupon code. We're giving them a CTA to take them back to cart. And you see we have a timer in there for 9 minutes and 53 seconds. I'll call that out because that is something that would be influenced by the data that we're gathering on Justuno for how long does it take for someone to convert after they've engaged. And maybe you have more data on that and just in general, how long it takes. And that's where that 24-hour timer, right, difference can come into play. But this flow is really ideal because it's kind of escalated based on where they are in the funnel of purchase on your website.
It's a really cohesive customer experience, I'll say.
Yeah. And depending on where they're coming from, right? Like if this is from email, it makes sense if our content wording kind of mimics what email is saying. If they're coming from social, right? Maybe we're using a specific influencer's name, like a name drop in this case, and saying, hey, this is so-and-so's best offer, like use their offer. So kind of making that connection to social, and just all dependent on where they're coming from and where they may have engaged with your brand.
Cool. Thanks so much, Steph.
Yeah, thank you. Pass it on.
So, kind of following the customer journey here and thinking through like lead capture, what's next, right? When somebody is, starting to make a purchase, what are ways that you can increase your average order value? And so the reason why this is such a critical metric for any business now and in the future is because it will really help you make the most out of every sale. It's like there's a lot of work, as Steph kind of just went through, into figuring out how to convert somebody on your site, different channels that are driving them to your site. Once you convert them, how can you get the most out of that sale? It will give you, increased profit margins, improve your ROI on advertising and other channels you're investing in, and just really create a really nice customer experience, really thoughtful. You have to be thoughtful about what you offer so that it feels cohesive and connected. So here are a few ways, that brands can successfully increase their AOV. So as Steph was mentioning, like a shoppable quiz is a great one. This is a great opportunity to learn more about your customer and, figure out ways that you can kind of tailor offers to them in the future that would, maybe take them beyond the product that they're already purchasing from your site. Free shipping thresholds are really popular. There's opportunity to think about increasing that threshold. And, if you're offering a $25 threshold, maybe it's time to increase it to 30. I think this one can be, tricky because you want to be really thoughtful about how much you're increasing it. So you don't go too far, right? And then no one's kind of meeting that threshold and then you lose out on sales. So, but it's still a great opportunity to increase AOV. Promoting samples is also a great opportunity because you can expand the products that customer is used to purchasing from you or used to using from you. So if you offer a sample, you're able to maybe get them interested in something else. So if you're selling skincare or beauty, you have a tinted moisturizer, you give them a sample of a sunscreen and they become, they love the sunscreen and they come back and they buy the tinted moisturizer and the sunscreen next. So those are some really great examples, but they're a little bit more, long-term examples of ways you can boost AOV. What we'll focus on today is post-purchase offers, which you're really going to kind of see immediate return on because it's so simple to set up and really easy for customers to kind of add more to their cart. To their purchase. So what is a post-purchase offer? I mentioned a little bit about these earlier, but they're shown after the checkout and before the thank you page. And so you can take this opportunity to recommend products they're likely to buy based off of what they've just purchased. So a great example I always like to use is if you have shoes, somebody purchases a pair of shoes. What goes really well with shoes? Socks. If you have that in your product catalog, it's a really great opportunity to increase your AOV and give them something relevant to what they just purchased. And you really want to think through the combinations that you're kind of, recommending and setting up so that it's really, really exciting for the customer and also really increases your likelihood of them accepting. So I'll talk through a little bit more on the strategies and how to use post-purchase offers to support some of these goals. And then we'll go through some tactics of how you can implement them using different techniques. So bundling is a great one. This is the example I just mentioned about, shoes and socks, thinking about product combinations that customers are likely to buy together. BOGO is another one. So offer a second item of what your customer just purchased. So let's say they got sunscreen. It's in the middle of summer. They're going to need more sunscreen throughout the summer. So you offer another sunscreen at maybe a slight discount, but it still increases their AOV. And then value. So you can offer a discounted item to customers who have average, higher than average spend. So let's say your usual AOV is around, $35, but someone spends $50 with you. You can give them a discount on a related product just to show your thanks for shopping as much as they do with you. And you can do the same strategy with volume. So let's say they've added 4 things to their cart, where usually your shoppers are adding 2 things. You can reward them with another discount on something related to what they've purchased, continuing to kind of up their cart value. And then inventory management. This is a great one, especially for, the times today. So I think a lot of us have ordered inventory and it's maybe arrived in bulk after, is intended from some of the supply chain issues. So it's a great opportunity to move inventory so you can give discounts or incentives on extra items in your inventory. Samples, as we mentioned earlier. So these can be new products or mini sizes of products that you're looking to launch into market and or move. And then gifts are a really great opportunity to just reward your customer and again, continue that relationship with them. So tons of strategies. These are just a few that our customers use with CartHook, and there's many more that can, again, increase your AOV and also accomplish some other business objectives. So what makes a post-purchase offer irresistible? So deploying some of these strategies, here are some tactics. I'll show this example here. But again, recommending a product that's related to a recent customer purchase versus kind of something random, right? You want to be really thoughtful about this and make sure that it's relevant to the customer, which will increase the likelihood that they accept the offer. You can create urgencies by a few different ways, putting a countdown timer in. I know Steph mentioned this from her section as well, but this one, it says like 4 minutes and 38 seconds left to claim the offer. It just gives somebody a little bit more urgency to kind of commit to it before it goes away. You can include one-time discounts. That could be a percentage or a dollar amount. We always recommend that customers test an A/B test what works best for their consumer base. So whether it's a percentage off or a dollar amount off, it's really good to kind of put that test in the market and see how people are responding. And then including some customer validation in the offer too. You can see here there's like a customer review. So let's say this customer hasn't tried this product before. It's really great to hear from somebody else that they love it. And then of course, consistent branding, with your store and making this look really connected and cohesive. So those are just a couple of ways to kind of take that post-purchase offer and make it really, really effective when you're launching the strategy. All right, and I'll pass it off to Emily to kick us off on returning customers.
Yeah, so I think, what's interesting is a lot of the strategies we see when we get like emails on how to, build our business and promote our business are about, getting new customers. And I feel like there's typically not as much focus as there needs to be on how to drive returning customers or really retain customers. And, these are people we spent so much effort, building awareness and then capturing the leads and then, getting them to make that first purchase. And so we don't want to, leave it there. I think it's so important to then, follow through and keep that customer engaged long-term. And really that's how you build that great lifetime value of customers over time, how you can really use that as a base to scale your business so that you're not constantly depending on, having new customers discover your products. It's about, keeping that baseline and then growing. And then, over time, increasing your profit margins and really driving repeatable business. So that's where you see the top 1% of direct-to-consumer brands are really strong, is they have a really, really great, strong base of returning customers who love their products, who are constantly reminded, whether it's via outreach or automatic purchasing on subscriptions, to come back and purchase, and who have that really kind of constant connection with the brand and really are able to discover the new products they launch, get the ones that they want all the time when they want them. Those kinds of strategies will really help people stick around and become kind of your solid user base of customers.
I think one tactic that a lot of people don't necessarily think about first when they think about driving returning customers and repeat purchases is their transactional emails. So these are an amazing channel. This is an amazing channel for brands to take advantage of to really kind of drive people to come back and continue to buy more. So let's say you've converted a new customer and they're eagerly awaiting their confirmation for their order to make sure everything's right and it looks good and they understand when they're going to receive the order. This is a great opportunity to build on that relationship and then also, incentivize them to come back. So what does that really look like? So there are many ways that you can optimize these. These are just a few examples. And I included one post-purchase example and one just transactional email that's really more upon account creation. So let's first talk about order confirmation and shipping updates. One thing that's really effective here, especially for any customer really, but especially for newer customers thinking about holiday and kind of converting new people, is to give product recommendations in these order confirmation and shipping update emails. The reason is because they can discover more products, in your catalog. It's really important for kind of getting them interested to come back. You can also offer incentives here as well for, you can segment net new customers versus returning customers. So let's say you only wanted to offer this to somebody who's already purchased with you before, or somebody who's not new. You can make that decision according to your strategy. And then another example is account welcome emails. So this one's really, really surprising, I think, to a lot of people. But including product recommendations in here, or just a preview of your catalog. Again, maybe somebody comes to your site, they're not super familiar with your brand yet. They create an account, they're interested clearly in purchasing and doing more with you. And so giving them kind of opportunities to see more of your product catalog in those emails can be really effective. And obviously, no need to discount here. You can just drive them back to your site, and maybe they discovered you have a strawberry mule that they really are interested in while they were looking at a different flavor, to use the craft mix example. So Emily, I'll pass it back to you to talk a little bit about subscriptions.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, so subscriptions are obviously an important thing to think about when you think about, returning customers and repeat purchases. And I like to kind of change the dialogue around this a little bit, because I think it can really open up a lot of creative strategies around subscriptions and how to make them work. But really, you should think of subscriptions as a way to automate repeat purchasing. And they're really meant to be convenient, which is, I think, something that gets lost a lot in kind of today's implementation of subscriptions on a lot of stores. And they're meant to be mutually beneficial. So, as a brand, you get that kind of more predictable revenue. You kind of know that these people have agreed to a subscription, that they're planning to come back and purchase on a regular basis. You get that immediate boost to LTV just by nature of the way subscriptions work. Those customers who subscribe tend to have much higher LTV, and you have a huge opportunity to even impact that and grow that. And then what you also get, kind of similar to some of the lead captures, you get this highly targetable community of people who love your product, who love it so much that they wanted to subscribe to it. And so, you can kind of take that as a really specific customer segment that you can use for outreach and marketing and engagement. I think also one thing that I like to note here is that, a lot of folks think, subscriptions might not work for my brand. It only works for things like vitamins. And I really don't think that's true anymore. And we'll go into a little bit of, how you can make subscriptions work for your brand, even if it's not, your product isn't something you would typically think of as a subscription. And I think it's kind of fun to take a step back and think about like where we are in the world of subscriptions. And this is really to show that we're so early in what could be the like ultimate best experience of subscription e-commerce. And sometimes I like to reflect on the fact that even just a few years ago, like I personally had to cancel a credit card to get out of a subscription that I didn't want. Subscriptions kind of started out as this scammy feeling thing where people would trick you into subscribing, maybe not even tell you, then it turns out you're subscribed and then there's no way to cancel. And so people had this kind of yucky feeling about it, like, oh, I got scammed into this. And really that's a terrible way to start out a relationship. And I think a big, theme of the way we think about subscriptions at Atomic is that you're entering into a long-term relationship. You would never want to enter into a long-term relationship with a person that way, where you say like, yay, I've tricked you, I got you, you can't get away, right? I think that's kind of a funny way to think about it. But we've sort of emerged from that era, and we're in what I kind of call the subscribe, save, and snooze era, which is I've heard that subscriptions are useful. It's something I should do. So I'm just going to throw up the subscribe and save radio button and then kind of go and focus on other things, which does sometimes work. And, you can get people, those loyal customers will sometimes choose to subscribe. But that's really kind of like the bare minimum bar for what it needs to be to have a subscription program to be a subscription. What I see more and more, and what I think, where I think the big opportunity lies is what I call the club strategy. And this is where I think we're just at the very beginning of this stage, and brands who can really lean into this and differentiate in this way, I think still have an opportunity to kind of rise above the rest and really, harness subscriptions in a way that stands out to consumers. And this is where, you look at some of the really successful brands that have really made subscriptions work. You see that they kind of make their subscriptions feel like an insider club. You get multiple benefits. It's not just about that, ongoing 10% discount. They have things like personalization. You get higher discounts as you buy more. You get exclusive access potentially. And this is where, we get more into that kind of mutually beneficial long-term relationship where, the customer is constantly engaged and feeling like they're really connected to the brand. And then you in turn get that really engaged community, which is so, so valuable and really what builds, again, that kind of base of buyers that you can really rely on as you continue to grow. And so this is all to say, you get that boost to LTV and that base. Customers, they should at least get convenience, and we'll talk more about this because I think that as a baseline is often not even met. But you can really offer them a whole range of benefits for subscribing, from a discount to, content or even live events if you want to get really creative. But really much like other human relationships, again, and the more thoughtful and personal you are with the outreach and building that community, the longer they'll stay. So I think really shifting our mindset to, my subscribers are my high value community customers is a really important shift to make.
Sorry.
So kind of going through this, I like to, I may or may not have a subscription problem personally. So I like to do a lot of, auditing of subscription experiences. And there's just so much to go into in terms of the value that you can bring to customers. But I think some to highlight are starting with kind of personalization and incentive. So especially on the purchase flow, you can really incentivize people to buy more in thoughtful ways, really give them flexibility to get exactly what they want. Things like being able to choose the items in a bundle, like a build-a-box, being able to really, customize exactly what they're getting. Again, the goal really of a subscription should be to get your customers what they want when they want it. It's not about getting them as many things as possible up front. And so, changing that to say like, okay, what do you need? Like what, and how often do you actually need it? And how can we be that service that gets you your soap exactly when you need it? So you don't have to have this product buildup. You don't have to go to Costco and use up an entire cabinet for soap or, whatever it is. Ongoing engagement and expansion. Again, this is so critical, but really leaning into that experience of what is it like for a customer when they come back to manage their subscription? Can they easily discover and add new products? Can they swap their products? This is something that is surprisingly not that easy in most subscription experiences, but you see the brands that do it really well, really drive higher engagement for their subscribers. And we see that actually, and I think this is unintuitive to a lot of brands, but higher engagement in the customer portal actually leads to higher retention. So the more that people can come back, edit what they're subscribed to, skip if they need to because they're going on vacation, whatever it is, the longer that they'll end up staying. And so making sure that experience in the customer management side is really good is very important. Kind of leading into the convenience of subscription management. So again, I think something that's often lost is that subscriptions are really meant to be convenient. They're supposed to bring you, the products that you want when you want them again. And so, it may be that, Melissa, you and I probably use toothpaste on a different cadence. And so, for both of us, getting the exact same, frequency of toothpaste delivery would probably not work. And so that's where subscription management is really, really important piece of it, is making that convenient and transparent. And so that part of that is being able to say, okay, I don't need it now, I need it later, or I need, longer times in between when I get shipments. But also, I think one thing that a lot of folks do is try to limit, like, can this person skip? Can this person pause? Can this person cancel? And I think that's another thing that kind of starts the relationship off on the wrong foot, where we're kind of saying, oh, I don't really trust you to make the right decision. Like, where the reality is that customers are going to do, if they really are going to cancel, they're going to cancel. But, you can do things to help them be more productive, to choose another option if it's really like that they're moving and it's just about changing their shipping address, get some feedback from them. But at the end of the day, blocking them from canceling is actually just going to make them really upset and potentially be a detractor from your brand. The other thing is, not being able to pause kind of makes them feel like, hey, I know my personal situation, I'm going on vacation, like, why can't I pause? Or, whatever it is, it just limits their experience in a way that's more likely to lead to a reason for them to cancel. So again, convenience, flexibility, extremely, extremely important. And then membership perks, I think this is kind of the fun, creative avenue that's opening up more and more, and that I'd really encourage people to lean into. And it's funny because I think, wine clubs have been doing this for a long time, and it hasn't really branched into other areas yet, but it definitely could, and would be a great way to, again, broaden the range of products that subscriptions really work for. But this really leans into community building. So how can you treat your subscribers like members? Can you give them exclusive perks? Can you give them discounts across your site? Can you just give them content? A lot of times they love your product partially because, maybe it leans into a specific mission or a specific lifestyle. Can you really incentivize them to stick around for that connection as well as the product? So it's not just about the package that arrives, it's about, that deep connection that they have with your brand and some of the ongoing benefits that relationship unlocks. Great. So kind of leaning into the tactical side of this. So, how can you really get the most out of your subscriptions? I think, there's a few stages starting from the beginning and leading into kind of the execution. But, if you haven't set up subscriptions yet, take a minute to do some kind of thoughtful planning and setup. So think about, who are your customers who are most likely to subscribe, what products are going to be the best fit, and what frequencies really make sense. I think an interesting thing about frequencies is that a lot of people just kind of throw up 1 month because that's what they've seen. But this is where, it can really be an interesting point that makes a difference on conversion. Like, people will actually in that moment think, do I want this every month? Or do I want this every week? And you want the answer to be yes. And I think, people are so nervous about product buildup that, offering longer frequencies can often be a better way to get that person to subscribe. And then they can always pull it in. But I think it's kind of better to err on that side. In fact, I have, there's a brand that uses our platform. We did a strategy session. And one of the major things we changed was from just offering the subscription monthly to doing 30, 60, and 90 days. And it almost doubled her subscriptions like within a week. It was a huge impact to her subscription conversion. And, yes, some people picked 90 days, which, feels like a long time, but that just makes it that much easier for them to come in and say, you know what, I actually used it faster than that. I'm going to change it to 60 days, or maybe I'm personally a 45-day person and I can do that in my portal. I can just pick exactly what works for me. So kind of getting them over the fence, getting past that initial fear of, am I going to feel a sense of dread when the package shows up at my door? Like, we never want to be that package, right? So kind of leaning into, what actually makes sense for my product, what actually makes sense for my customers, and trying to match that during your planning. Really targeting subscribers and identifying target audience is important. I think so many people don't actually kind of segment their thinking when it comes to subscriptions. They just target subscribers like they would any purchase. And I think that's an important thing to kind of lean into, is like subscription audience is a slightly different audience potentially, or maybe a really important subset of your other customers. And so really doing some analysis to understand who's likely to be a subscriber. I think leaning into lead capture, some of those questions that you can ask in the beginning can help with this, really defining, based on the questions that they answer, or sometimes there's their behavior on site, or, the sources that they come from in marketing, understanding like who is most likely to be a customer and how can I target them and how can I actually market subscriptions. So here's another tactical thing you can take away is, I think it's surprising how many people have never actually tried to sell their subscriptions. So, just today, go send an email that says, subscribe to our product and here's why, and have some benefits there. I think you'd be surprised, how effective that can be. A lot of folks don't actually talk about their subscriptions like a program or something that is marketable. And then lastly, again, treating subscribers like a highly valued community. I think, again, offering multiple exclusive benefits. I've been leading into this a lot, but I think it's incredibly important. So, sometimes you'd be surprised what can be seen as a benefit. There can be things like discounts and free shipping. People, of course, often call out cancel anytime and flexibility, but even just adding like one more thing in the mix can really start to make it feel more like a club. For example, you could even just every now and then send a poll out to your subscribers, asking them what your next scent or flavor or, variant should be. And that makes them feel like they're participating in your brand. So you can use that as a membership perk. Like you get to have input into our product development, for example. Allowing flexibility, another thing, if you offer subscriptions, you should look into today. If you don't already, let people skip and pause and change their frequency. That's something that can really be a retention driver. Again, it's a long-term relationship. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So really thinking about how you can keep people in a place that they're actually experiencing like a convenience in their life is really important. And then, engaging them beyond sales and in your mission. So if you're a mission-driven brand, especially, or, if you represent a certain kind of like lifestyle or aesthetic or whatever it is, really, even if the content you're sending them is not something that's taking them directly to an add to cart page, that can be really, really valuable. So sending them content that's related to, why they were attracted to your brand in the first place is a way to kind of keep that relationship strong. And then quick plug for Atomic, obviously choosing a subscription tool that enables all of these things is important as well. This is kind of how we think about subscriptions. This is core to our philosophy. And so the tools that we build are all kind of angled at enabling this holistic picture of what it means to have a great ongoing relationship with your customers.
Yeah. And I think, Emily, you said it really well. Like this is a long-term strategy that obviously, people can start exploring now, and it can continue to evolve, as time goes, for the remainder of this year and into next. And so I think we have in this session, we covered a lot of, kind of short-term things that you can kind of start doing now, but everything that we talked about today is really about, starting with this channel or focusing on these metrics and then growing that into a long-term strategy. So you'll see some of the strategies are very long-term, but some of the tactics we shared, some are short-term, some you'll want to maintain for the long-term. So just thinking through what some of those might look like for your business, but all of these will continue to help you develop a sustainable business. So I know we're a little bit over time, so I'll quickly go through this, but I think we all can agree that to thrive in this market, you must adapt. It's really critical to know your customer. And every section we talked about today, we talked about getting more information about your customer and then tailoring an experience to your customer and building a relationship with them. And then really investing in channels that, again, drive long-term growth. So whether that's lead capture and then, finding ways to bring people back or get them to convert, to AOV, your checkout, how can you optimize that to get even more from your customers and give them a great experience? And then, retention and post-purchase emails. How can you develop programs that keep people engaged with you and drive a repeatable business? So ask us anything. We'll answer a few questions. I know Steph has done a great job of answering some questions in the chat already. So thanks, Steph. And we'll take them as they come, and then we'll wrap up. If you have any questions for us that we couldn't answer today, feel free to reach out to us. Our email addresses are listed below. And we'll also send you a recording of the session after we wrap. So a few easy ones. And I think this has been something that has continued to come up in the chat, but obviously discounting is something that we all mentioned, that you can do as a tactic in each of these strategies. And that has been proven to give some short-term results, right? But how do you think about these channels in terms of long-term growth, right? So maybe not using discounting, and maybe Emily, you can start with this one, and then we can all kind of chime in. But removing the tactic of discounting, how can these all support long-term growth?
Yeah, so I think, some of the membership things we've been talking about with subscriptions are a really great way to do that. So kind of offering benefits that aren't a discount. The reality is that, especially with subscriptions, the people who subscribe, they really like your product. And so I think it becomes less about, how much am I getting off? And that's kind of more of a like, oh, this is a nice benefit that I get, and more about, what else do I get? And I've seen a lot of creativity here. I spoke to a brand recently who they offer like a warranty for their device if you're a subscriber. So that's a pretty big benefit. There are a lot of things that you can kind of tie in, and that may or may not be relevant, but content again is one that I think most people can do. We have a really awesome apparel brand on our platform that has this really engaged community. They started as a subreddit, and so they can offer things again like brand participation, voting on the next colors, for example, discounts across the site. Maybe like you offer subscriptions on your basics, but you do kind of, again, I guess that's a discounting strategy, but still kind of more targeted. And then, again, I think in the future, there's kind of a whole range of things you can do, including, I love to think of, as we kind of hopefully emerge from the pandemic, live events, things like that, where you really kind of tie people into your brand and mission. So that's really from the subscription angle. But again, I think there are a lot of brands who maybe haven't considered subscription that actually could be a great fit for subscription, even if it's not kind of their primary method of selling.
That's great. And Steph, do you want to comment, from your perspective as well?
Yeah, I think that's such a great, that gave me a lot of ammo just to go back to my clients and push subscription in different ways we can think about it. And so I guess on that note, if we're not doing discounts, that totally makes sense. Of course, let's A/B test, right? And it's also when you're targeting on site or even in your email campaigns, we are targeting and providing this based on behavior. So maybe we're giving that really awesome 10% discount, 20% discount to someone that's been to the site 4 times, has added something to cart, still hasn't purchased. We know they originally came from a social UTM. So it's all those little notes and cues we will take into considering who should get maybe that type of awesome offer. But yeah, along with that, content, ebooks, anything that's really unique to your brand. Maybe you do a special birthday sale every year. So it's this is your access to that birthday sale that's coming. So maybe building a lot of anticipation and kind of what we've touched on, look to the future and kind of think of that long-term game. Same thing can be done with these offers that we give out. Think about maybe that next purchase or that next visit to site.
One other thing that just came to mind as you were talking to is I love when I see really great personalized quiz flows that lead in a lot of times they do lead into subscriptions. They don't have to, but I do think that people like to feel like something was tailored to them. So that feeling of, oh, this is for me, I think that can sometimes be enough of a benefit to purchase outside of a discount.
Right. And continuing to build that relationship. And you can do that, especially without, discounts, as you guys mentioned, whether it's dynamic content depending on what they've done or different customer segments that you have, you can do the same strategies, in your post-purchase emails with Upwork, as well as your post-purchase offers with CartHook, and leverage the discounts really strategically when you want to and when it makes sense for your customers and your business. But there's also a lot of other tactics you can use, to kind of incentivize someone to add more to their cart or to come back and shop with you again or explore more products. And so, these are definitely meant to be up for, kind of your implementation of your business goals and when you want to kind of use each lever, but they're all opportunities that are important to have and kind of, again, continuing to A/B testing. I love that plug, because you can walk into something with a lot of assumptions, and sometimes you're totally right. And sometimes you're like, oh, I learned something, right? And then you can implement that in other channels too. Awesome. We are a little bit over time, and I see a few more questions in here. So a few questions for specific speakers. We'll make sure to pass those along to the speakers, and then they can get back to you guys after the session. But thank you guys so much for being with us today. So it's awesome to have you both, Steph and Emily. Thank you for your time, your expertise, and I hope you guys all have a great day. And we'll see you on our next session.
You as well. Yeah, great learning from you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.